Okay, so we talked about scoring on the last video. I wanted you to really get that. When you're matching keywords from your resume to the job description, look for words that are repeated over and over. That's a good indication that it's really important to that role in that hiring manager, and make sure you're matching terminology. So if they call them clients, we call them clients. If they call them customers, we call them customers. If they hyphenate something, we hyphenate it. We really want to make sure that we are speaking the same language. Same thing with acronyms. If they say SDLC, we say SDLC. If they spell out software development lifecycle, so do we. Look for words that are bold, underlined, or words in all caps. Some of the ATSs won't let them underline words, but some will. So look for words that are really, that they stand out, and they're telling you these are really important. You have to have these. Also, same thing with things that say required or must have. Those are deal breakers for them, guys. So if you have a list of deal breakers for companies, keep in mind they have a list of deal breakers that somebody has to have these skills because that's exactly how they need, are on their team that they need immediately filled. It kind of reminds me of going into a car dealership and saying, hey, I want a new sports car. And they're like, yeah, but we have minivans on sale, which is interesting, but not necessarily relevant to what they're looking for. And so we don't want to be a minivan, guys. We want to be a sports car, and we want to find the company that sees us as a sports car. I know, weird analogy. I'm a boy mom. So, all right, here we go. Interviews, round one. If you look at your job description and your resume and you consider the application process round one of interviews, which this is what I teach, then you look at that job description as the questions and your resume as the answer to the questions. So going through the bullet points, you would say, what is your experience with this bullet point? How did you accomplish this bullet point? What did you achieve regarding this bullet point? Really break that down into questions, and then go to your resume and see, does it directly answer the questions? And I think sometimes we give way more information than what is needed. So look at your resume to see, does it speak directly to the job description, and are we throwing out random facts? And I think about the story, like if I was telling you, hey, I went to the movies with my son and we were watching the new Marvel movie and it was amazing. And by the way, my mom's name's Pam. And then we got popcorn. Like, it seems so out of place, right, that I just threw my mom's name in there when she has nothing to do with the story. It can feel that awkward and that kind of, I always do that weird dog thing where I kind of tilt my head when I don't understand. It feels like that when we see something on a resume that's totally out of place. I see this a lot at the bottom of resumes where people are, it's like professional, professional, professional. Oh, and by the way, I like hiking. It feels awkward. And so keep it very in tune, one voice all the way through the resume. Keep it professional and on task. So once we get through the ATS, we still have to impress humans, guys. So always be honest, always be authentic and true to yourself. Use language that supports your brand. And this is why I only write resumes with people. I don't write resumes for people. Don't let somebody else just write your resume for you without your input. You know your accomplishments, you know your skills, you know your language that you want to use, and then build language around the brand that you want. Always, always, always be honest. If I told you I would pay you $100,000 a year, but all you had to give me in return was your integrity and your happiness, you wouldn't do that. So don't do it for a job. Don't try to game the system, guys. This whole theory about I will put all the keywords at the bottom and then just put the text white, the ATS will catch you in that. It does parse that information out over. It doesn't care what color text are. It reads text, not font. And so if we're looking at how that's coded in, we want to make sure that we aren't just throwing these random keywords in there. And also, it's gaming the system. Use keywords relevantly and as many times as they're relevant, but don't just throw random keywords in there to try to game the system. Here are the sections I include on a resume. Remember, only include sections that are relevant to you. So when I get to volunteer experience, if you don't have current volunteer experience, just leave that off. Contact information, title, summary, core competencies and achievements, professional experience, additional experience for experience that was before 2008, a technical summary. You can include things like Zoom, Loom, Trello, anything that you use to collaborate for a remote role. And then education, certifications and training, memberships and affiliations, volunteer experience, and then patents and publications if you happen to have those. How we skim information, guys. And this is where I combine being a recruiter with being an educator who studied literacy, and then combining that with having gone through a very intense editing process for my book and multiple rounds of edits. I feel like it made me a stronger writer, to use words more powerfully, but also to really get out there and look at how we're using information. Are we being clear? Are we conveying our brand? You have 10 to 30 seconds to make an impression during your resume. Don't get stuck in the maybe pile. So think back to, 1989 when we had paper resumes, 1998, even when I was still doing paper applications for the jobs I wanted. Then I picture a hiring manager with a stack of resumes. So think about those 300 resumes, and we're going, yes, I'll call you. No, trash can, maybe, which is the stack that happens if I have any questions. I need to call a company. Oh, I know that hiring manager. Let me ask them how you did. Or I can't tell what technology you used. I have a question about your resume that you didn't answer. Do you have experience with this? That's the maybe pile. And also what turns into, in this day and time, the digital black hole. Don't get stuck there. So make sure we answer questions proactively, and keep in mind that we skim information top to bottom, not left to right. It's not like reading a book. So often what's on the right side of the page does not get viewed as much. So keep those 3 to 4 words on the first part, drive those. Start with a really powerful verb. Don't use phrases like responsible for, or extensive knowledge of, or anything like that. Don't be vague. Think about verbs that tell your story, like pioneered, championed, fostered, partnered, collaborated, drove. Really, think about collaborated, those words that really tell your story. And then use bolding strategically, and don't capitalize random words. Remember, just because you capitalize it does not make it important. Build your brand and tell your story based on the message you're trying to send. So decide up front, what is your brand? It's not a predefined formula of 2 pages and less than 18 words on each bullet point, guys. It's not. I want you to tell your story. So you're building your brand using only words. Pick words that best support you. If you're a driver and you're using words like championed, developed, mentored, managed, led, you think about those words that say, I'm a driver, I'm a go-getter. Enthusiastic kind of words. Analytical, we want to use words like strategic, analyzed, reviewed, and those words that say I'm a process improvement specialist, things like that, that would say I'm analytical. Expressionist, I'm a storyteller, so I want to use words that really indicate that I connect with people, I collaborate, I champion cross-functional communication, things like that that would support being an expressionist. For amiables, what we have is the people who get along. So a lot of words like, again, collaborated, partnered with, key contributor, team player, those words that say I'm amiable and I support, supportive language, I support the business goals and objective. Take the space you need to tell your career story. While I really don't like to see 4 and 5 page resumes, there are some tech resumes that get really long, but I want you to tell your story and the relevant parts of your story. So make sure you give yourself the grace that if your resume goes into 3 pages, we're not cutting out vital information. All right. What counts on your resume is telling your whole story, but only the relevant parts. Go back to that story about my son and I at the movies, right? Every item on our resume must pass the why do they care about this test? Pick core competencies and then build from there. Every single bullet point needs to relate back to the message you're conveying, that what I've done in my past has prepared me for what I'm about to do for your company. This is the problems that I solve. Use descriptors and passionate language. The silver bullet points: what you did, who you partnered with, what technology you used, what you accomplished, and how it impacted business. So you're going to weave together these facts into your bullet points. Bullet points should be 2 to 3 lines, at the most 4, but really make sure that they tell the story about what you did. Not just that I led software implementations, but I led a key customer-facing software implementation and collaborating with the sales team and marketing team, or whatever that looks like, guys. We want to make sure that we're telling that story and we're using really powerful silver bullet points. We'll end this on common mistakes. Inconsistent conjugation. The rule is simple, guys. If it's something you're doing or going to do for a company, we're going to use present tense language. If it's something you achieved or that you have stopped doing, meaning you don't work there anymore, that's past tense. Check your spelling and grammar and be wary of unclear language. I see a lot of vague language and we don't really understand. You may know what you're talking about, and the hiring manager may even know, but it has to go through resume screeners. So speak on very basic terms using passionate language that really tells your story and represents your brand. Don't get too specific though. I see this a lot with industries. Don't break down that it was FAA and OSHA if you were trying to get out of the airline industry. Talk about federal regulations, okay? Broaden out that language if you're trying to change industries. Avoid redundancy, especially on those keyword or those first words on the bullet points. Don't use the same verb over and over. I see this a lot with like managed, led, analyzed, something like that. Avoid empty white space. So bullet points that end on the left side of the page can create empty white space. So be wary of that. And then don't list your entire job description or everything you've done in the history of forever. Keep it relevant. And remember that, why do they care about this test? Don't copy and paste the job description into your resume and then just revise it as presenting that as something you did. You want to reword that, put it in your own words. And again, you hear me say it over and over, tell your story, represent your brand. So I hope this helps. Let me know if you have questions about ATS resumes, and I will talk to you guys tomorrow.